The last thing I'd like to discuss about lists before moving on to tuples and dictionaries is the list methods that come along with using this particular data type. So I'd like to show you the syntax first and then walk through some examples. If we have a list and we'd like to use one of these methods, we will write down the list's name and then use this dot operator, put a period there. We'll then write the name of the method next and pass whatever arguments need to go to that method to it in parentheses, much like when we call the print function or the print method, and then we pass certain things inside of parentheses to the print function. That's the type of syntax we'll have here, and it will all come after a dot with the list name. Again, examples to come below. How are we to know what these methods are and the arguments they might need is that we're going to look to our official Python documentation to find those things. For example, if we search for Python list methods and follow the link to our official Python documentation, docs.python.org, it's going to give us examples of all the different methods that come with the list data type and the arguments that need to be passed to those methods listed here. In this slide, I've chosen just a couple of the more common methods that we're going to use with lists so I could give you a specific example to help you understand. Well, in the previous video, we talked about concatenating one whole list to a pre-existing list. There's another way that we could approach this, which is to use the append method of a particular list. So going back to our October miles example, where we have this list of miles that we've run throughout the month of October, one way to add just one specific value to that list would be to take our list name, October miles, use the dot operator, and then use the append method. And what is to be appended to the October miles list needs to be passed in as an argument to the append method, and that number that we wish to add to the list is the number 5. After calling the append method with the value 5, if we asked our computer to print the October miles list, it would give us our original list with the value 5 appended to the end. Now, the append method is for adding an item to the end of a list. It's possible when we have a list that we might want to insert a particular value in the middle of a list, and the Python list data type supports that with the insert method. So if we were going to call the insert method, and maybe instead of adding the value of 3.14 to the end of the list, we wanted to insert that somewhere in the middle, we could call the insert method on the October miles list, and what we need to pass as arguments to the insert method is the position where we would like to put the value and then the value itself. And notice from the output we can see that when we say insert in the second position, we're talking about the index position of the list, because where the 3.14 value now appears is in the 0, 1, 2 spot of our list, not in the second position as we might think of as people. So when we pass this argument in, it has to be as an index, like the computer would see it. Another thing that can be really useful to note is that because lists are ordered, we're definitely allowed to have repeated values. As you see in the October miles list up here, there are many days where we run 0 miles and other days where we ran 4 miles consistently. So repetition is allowed inside of lists. There's no problem with that like there would be for a mathematical set. What this means is that sometimes we may wish to count the occurrence of a particular value within a list. Like, how many days did I run precisely 4 miles? You could determine this by using the count method for a particular list, and the argument that needs to be passed to the count method is the thing that you'd like to count occurrences of within that list. So when we run October miles.count of the value 4, it's counting those 2 times that we ran 4 miles. Last but not least is an alternative for removing something from a list, although you have to be careful with this particular method. Let's say that we wanted to remove a 0 value from the list. We could call the remove method on our list, and then we pass to that method the value we want removed from the list. But notice when we take a look over here at our October miles list over here on the right, when we asked October miles to remove the value of 0, it does not remove all zeros from the list. It simply removes the first one it finds. So it removed this 0 from the list, but it did not remove any of the others. So it's important again to reference that official documentation to see precisely what each of these methods does to the list. But here's just an example of some of the things that we can do with a list.